Hello to all and to each. We're back again for the latest edition of the Miramichi Historical Linkages podcast. So it's been a week for you. It's been about 10, 15 minutes for us. And yes, I'll always keep making that joke. Anything worth doing is worth overdoing. We're back again with Joe Ward to talk. Last week we talked a little bit about giants, and we talked about again how that is again, a very present thing. It's part of a long tradition, but a very present thing in each of us today. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about little people and something else that we found in a lot of the research that we were doing across cultures. So, Joe, welcome back, and thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, good to have me here, and there's so many stories about little people, and I don't know where to start, but I'll start from all cultures, I guess. Even in Ireland they have they're called leprechauns in Ireland. And other cultures, they have them. I don't know what they call them, but they exist. Some of them are, they portray them as tricksters, or, trying to get their pot of gold or whatever. But like I said, that's how they perceive them. In our perception of those little people, or what we call them, they're called Bodlad Amooj. That's what the elders call them. They're little people. They're actually native people, but they're small. That's how we perceive them. Not everybody will have an encounter with the little people. You have to have either something that's special about you, or a gift to have contact with them. So they're very, I don't know if they're mistrusting, or they don't want everybody else to know. But they've been around ever since the beginning of time. And there was one elder from Alberta when he came down here. His name was Albert Lightning. So he came down here, and that was some of the questions that the elders had around here. He said, do they have little people out there? And they said yes. And then this man, he said he wanted to know about them. So he started asking questions. And some of the answers he gave were, they're just like human beings, but they're smaller. But when they made contact with Aboriginal people, that they began to trade. It's just like other Aboriginal people on Turtles Island here, that we traded goods and our clothing and stuff like that, and plus information and problem solving. So So they begin to form a friendship. So when they started doing that, the Bugla or the little people, said, we'd like to have some fresh buffalo meat. So the Aboriginal people, what they would do is that they would take either smoked meat or dried meat, and they would trade it, or they would leave it as offerings near trees and stuff like that, a living tree, and they would leave their the food there, like meat, fish. What else did they say? Oh, and then they said the little people, they needed clothing, so the elders and the women would leave smoked hides and tan hides there. The Aboriginal people on Turtles Island, they had to build a relationship, and when their relationship was strong, that the Budalaramurj can trust the big people, that they started trading goods together. And one of the things that they were excellent at doing was to make arrowheads out of different types of stone. So they would look at those arrowheads, and then turn around. They would trade different kind of techniques, and that's where we got to learn how to make our spearheads and different knives, and knowing those different stones that we use for like back in the day, there was no metal around here, but we can get sharp stones, different stones, and they traded that knowledge to the Aboriginal people. So turn around, they that's how they formed a good relationship together, and I know they still have that relationship together today. But we haven't forgotten what they taught us about, about taking care of the land and taking care of one of the most things that I heard is that you're not supposed to speak bad about them or anything like that. So there's in some stories that you'll hear that out there that they were tricksters, and that's where what you call them, as human beings, we made those stories up, right? They're just made up stories. But there's when the horse was introduced around here, and I guess Aboriginal men had, they started, having horses and cows and different stuff like that. So I guess one of the things that they noticed was when they would put their horses in the barn, and they brushed them and everything, they cooled them down and fed them, and they got ready to bed down in the barn. the next morning when they went out there, the horse has a mane here and its tail, so that when they went out there the next morning, that the horse's mane was all braided, and it was braided so nice and small, and it looked so beautiful even from front of the horse's mane here. And then when they went to look, and even the tail was all braided, and they noticed that they were using the horsehair. They start using the horsehair for different things. So they would find little what do you call them? Like little necklaces or bands made out of horsehair, and they couldn't explain. They couldn't explain. Why is this happening to their horses in the barn? When it didn't happen all the time, but it happened. So one of the things that the elders told the young men that I guess the Budalamuj is what you call them, doing those things, and uh, where they live. That's the $1,000,000 question, because everybody wants to know where they live. And one of the places that are around here is called Strawberry Marsh. So down in Strawberry Marsh, that's where there's a lot of plants, and I guess they dwell there somewhere. I don't know where, but that's where I was told. When I go down there and I go pick different types of medicine, or if I got a lot of stuff I'm thinking about and stuff, I go down there. And when I go down there, as soon as I get off my truck, I put myself in a mindset. I said, whatever I'm thinking about today and whatever happens, you know what I mean? I'm going to leave it at my truck. So I start walking, and as I walk in the marsh, I see different flowers, and the wind picks up, and there's tall grass and all this here. By the time I make it to my destination, I have forgotten all about what I was worried about and what was on my mind. So there's something down there. It's either in the nature, or it's what that place was for. That's a sacred site for the people on the Miramichi, especially the Mi'kmaq people. So what we used to do down there was we used to go over there and we would pick our sweetgrass. And there would be other medicinal plants that were down there, and we used them there. And we collected them, and and we still do that today. Sometimes you'll see myself going down there, and I'll pick all this stuff. And I'll tell you another thing. There's little creatures down there too, and they're called frogs, or you would call them. It's not a toad, but it's a bullfrog. How many ever heard of bullfrog? A bullfrog, because when I was down there, I walked down in that marsh, and I was already told, I said, I got to take my time and go through there, because there's beings down there that are connected with that Budalamuj, and one of them it's called the bullfrog. So the bullfrog, he'll make this sound with his underneath his throat, and you'll see him there laying on top of the water like this. You could just see his hands like this. And how can that little bullfrog, he's only that big, make such a sound that you can hear it for, I don't know, a half a mile away? And he's only that big. How the hell are you making that noise that travels that far? And here I was just like on a little, I had to walk a little bit and they would stop singing or whatever they're doing and making this funny noise. And then one day I got the opportunity there. I seen him. He was laying on top of that water like this, and his chin was right here. And I noticed something. He was using his throat, and the water was his, it's just like a fiddle. A fiddle is made out of spruce, and it has a really good acoustic value. So the frog figured out that how he can get his message across, he used the water as his, what you call them, sort of like a loudspeaker. So he can attract it. Yeah. So he used that to get his message out there to his, the other girls. The other girls. Yeah. So I listened to all that, and then okay, I took that. I said to myself, I just learned a gift. So in Sarah's culture, they have a water drum, and it's a piece of hollowed out wood or a bowl or something, and they'll put water in it, and they'll put a hide, a wet piece of hide on there, and they'll put rocks on there and tie it down, and they'll make it tight. So I hit that drum like that, and then the water vibrated inside there, and it made a different tone. So I took that, and I took that part, but I went back to that bullfrog, and I used, and that's where throat singing came from. And it's not only to do with they always say the Inuit and Innu. So in special ceremonies around here, that's what we do. We learn from the wildlife, and plus I'll get back to that Budladamooj. That Budladamooj, sometimes what happens is that, it's just like where these little stories came from. And now they took those stories from the Budladamooj, and they made little nursery rhymes out of them. Or what they would do, a mom or a dad would, when this child is ready to start exploring the world, and they would use that Budladamooj to help the child to start. Maybe you don't want that child to wander too far away from you, so they would use that Budladamooj, saying that if you travel over there too far, then maybe the Budladamoojes will take you, and you won't be able to come back home. You know what I mean? It's sort of like what's that nursery rhyme? I don't know if it was a nursery rhyme, but it's to do with the Mad Hatter there. What's his name? Doris, and remember
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland, something like that, right? So they would scare the children like that. They just don't want them to go over there. And that little story
We have
will
a
tell
similar
them,
one in
if you
Acadian
wander,
culture.
yeah, you see what I mean? So other cultures grabbed a hold of that and they made it a part of theirs. You know what I mean? And that's how that Budala the Mooch or little person came about. Yeah, but it had to have a place of origin, right? Somebody had to experience that, and I can tell you, there's thousands and millions of stories. So the Budala the Mood offered himself, or said, okay, if that's what you got to do, and turn around. But remember, we're not bad. We're not bad. And we're not there to scare anybody. We're there to educate and help. That's what they were. They were helpers. Yeah, and that's what they call them, spirit helpers. Yeah. And that's what I said. Some people can connect with them really good, and there's other people that got different kind of gifts. You know what I mean? Some people will connect with flowers. Some will connect with the water. Some will connect with the stars up there, or the moon, or whatever. There's all different gifts. Same thing with that Budala the Mooch, and if they, it's sort of like they would say that if the Budala the Mooches are there to help you believe in the unknown. Sometimes that when we have troubled teenagers or adults, and they have a hard time connecting to either their tradition, or they need a little bit of inspiration. Myself, I learned a long time ago that am I always going to have a standard of this is what I'm told, and if I want to learn some more, then I have to cross that edge over there in my everyday work. And do I cross that line over there and I enter over there, then when I cross that line into another level of understanding of what's really out there, you know what I mean? And there's some of us pursue that, but we have to do it carefully. And what we learn from there is that sometimes old man used to say, he said, there are some people in this world that they're not going to believe it until they see it, right? So they want to have that higher knowledge and know, these aren't just stories. You know what I mean? So even if, when I came here this morning, and when Sarah was telling me that I'm going to be going into a podcast, and I asked her, I said, what am I going to be talking about? And she told me, said, you're going to be talking about the Budala the Mooches. And those are the little people. And I said to myself, okay. So I left a little while ago, and I put tobacco on the ground out there. And I said, I hope that I give you this tobacco, the Budala the Mooches. I gave some tobacco to them. And I said, I hope I don't offend you. So I'm going to share this with the people that, have curiosity and they want to learn about you. And I'm going to put that out there for you. So that's what I did. And, and but I don't want you to walk away, the listeners or the moms or the dads or, and they're not to be used into scaring the hell out of anybody. They're not there for that. They're there. They're there for educational purposes, and sometimes, when we make believe, there's a time when we were 7 or 8, right? I want to put you in the Boodala the Mooj state. You guys got to go back to when you guys were 6 or 7. And then you had this little friend that nobody could see. And that's your Boodala the Mooj. So everybody has one in them. Yeah, that's your little Boodala the Mooj. But when you cross over, when you go into puberty, that's when you don't talk to your Boodala the Mooj anymore. But some of us, some elders, always have that childhood thing, and the Boodala the Mooj is always awake. You know what I mean? Some shed that, and others retain it. Remember, there's a Boodala the Mooj living inside of you. There you go.
Wow.
That's what the Boodala the Mooj wanted you to hear.
Get back in the picture here.
And you know what? You know what? That really makes a lot of sense for me.
You know, it really does. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know what? All the time that we were looking for him, he was right in front of us all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and just going back to when I was a kid, like, this is really fascinating, Joe. You know what I mean? Like, I remember, like having, there was a little girl that used to live, you know what I mean, in a little hole in the wall, in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Ginty McGinty, I used to call her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was her name, and that's it.
Yeah.
So maybe, you know what I mean? Like, that's it. Maybe she was my little person, and that's it. Now I feel bad. I haven't talked to her in like 30 years. But
I'm starting to feel the same way. I'm thinking about that. We used to have at my grandmother's, and I still think about it every time because it's still there. When you go up her staircase from the basement, one of the stairs, there's a little crack in the corner. So there's a little hole that goes into the wall.
Yeah.
And I, growing up, used to tell my cousins, there is a band of fairies that live in there.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
little tiny band members, and they play the fiddle and they play guitars.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, next time I got to go to my grandmother's, I got to stop by and give them a little offering or something. Thank them for letting me get to 30.
Yeah, so that's what they would do. They would give them, and we still do it today for our departed loved ones. But like I said, these entities, these little spirits that they're around, they're called our imaginary friends, but they're there for a reason. They're there for the times that when we go inwards to our safe place where our childhood spirit still in all of us. There's a child in all of us. And sometimes what happens is that we forget about that part. But remember, in our stages of life, you're going towards your next childhood. When you start getting older and you're you can't go out anymore and stuff like that. And then when your mind starts, not getting, not that strong anymore. So your childhood behaviors start coming back. So that means that you're on your second childhood. And when you're getting there, and that's why elders, when they're in their second childhood, and they can talk about these things much easier than an adult does, because an adult has too many responsibilities on their plate. But when you get older, nobody cares what an old man has to say. You know what I mean? These are just what you call little stories. But to children, they can build off that, and you can let your imagination run wild. Yeah.
So with that, we'll draw to a close for another week. Joel, once again, thank you so much for sharing these very meaningful teachings, and again, ones that that resonated even in ways that I certainly wasn't anticipating. That's it today, and so I'll be back next week. I'm not quite sure what we'll be talking about, but we look forward to seeing you all then. And Joe, I hope we see you again very soon. Perhaps in a future episode, maybe we can come back and talk some more.
Yep.
So with that, we'll draw to a close. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.